drugs are everywhere, you can't stop it. Gonna like to make a profitable and so it's longevity. Drugs are everywhere, drugs are everywhere, drugs are...
Hey, Murphy. I'm a former heroin addict and current alcoholic, and you're listening to Self-Medicated Weekly Dose, a podcast all about drugs and the people who use them. As always, this program is inspired by the harm reduction movement, informed by my personal experience using all sorts of drugs for damn near 30 years, and enlightened by my special guests. Speaking of, I got a tremendous one joining me today. She's a very funny stand-up comedian and filmmaker who recently made her late-night debut on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Just the other day, I watched her set from the Netflix Is a Joke Festival. Had me howling. Also, her debut comedy album comes out tomorrow, which is her birthday. And, tomorrow from today when we're recording this episode. But by the time you're listening to it, it will be in the future. So her debut comedy album will be available for you to pick up. It's called Follow-Up Question. Please welcome to the program, Kenice Mobley. Hello. Oh, folks are excited. All right.
Wow.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Happy early birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Better than belated birthday. It feels like to get in there early so you don't flub it late. So whenever this does air, but yeah, your album is a Follow-Up Question. And so you taped this recently. How'd you feel about the taping?
It was good. I liked it. I had a good time. I did it at one of my favorite places, which is Union Hall in Brooklyn.
Ooh, great spot.
It's a great spot. And in my set, I usually do ask people a lot of questions. I think I have a background in psychology. So to me, people and how they react to things are terribly interesting. And I do often find myself during my set being like, why did you react that way? And I got to do that several times and people recorded it and we put it on an album.
Excellent. Congrats. I can't wait to hear it.
Thank you.
In the meantime, let's dive on into this episode here, starting with our first segment, The Substance Report.
This is the question. Do junkies' lives matter?
We all know full well the mainstream media's narrative on substance use is absolute garbage. So what I like to do here is grab some of the top drug-related stories in the news and give them proper coverage. This one here is from the New York Times. This is the headline says, the one where Matthew Perry writes an addiction memoir. In Friends, Lovers, and The Big Terrible Thing, the actor gets serious about sobriety, mortality, colostomy bags, and pickleball. Now, Kenice, I don't know if you saw this, but he did this Diane Sawyer interview. Big thing, he's got his memoir coming out. So, Diane Sawyer sat down with him to do this thing. Now, I don't know how much you know about Matthew Perry and his deal, but I don't know if you watched Friends even. I didn't really watch the program.
I did watch Friends. I watched it both, I watched it off and on growing up because it was on all the time. Yeah. But then during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, I have a thing where I try to watch 100 new movies every year, and a movie can be a movie or it can be a season of television, but I watch 100 new things. And one year I was like, I'm just watching Friends, top to bottom, all of Friends. And I did it. And I didn't like it.
But you made it through the commitment.
I made it. I did. I commit because I started it and I was like, gosh darn it, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to finish this.
Fix it. You should fix it.
Yeah, it should be fixed. Hopefully we do a new one and we don't have a lot of the same issues.
Let's reboot it.
The inherent misogyny, the weird whiteness of New York, all that stuff.
Yes. New York is a fantasy land in there that does not exist in real life in any way. Apartment size.
Never. I was like, they don't smell piss. They don't do nothing. They don't take the train.
Nope.
Please. Yeah.
Nope. It was you're a great ensemble cast. I mean, the talented cast for sure. I'll give them that, but not my program, not for me. Aside from that, Matthew Perry has since now multiple times. So he had some issues. He had to walk away from the show from Friends. So he wrote this memoir all about his alcohol Vicodin use. He got to the point where he was, almost killing himself. And so he said 55 Vicodin pills a day. He spent $9 million on rehab in the neighborhood of, which is a nice luxury to float out to people. I don't even know how. Dude, when you're overpaying, that's for damn sure because it doesn't cost $9 million.
No, the money, I get it. People will find creative ways of taking your money so that you have none, and I understand that. It's the 55 pills a day that I'm like,
yeah.
Would you even need to eat if you're taking 55 pills a day? That's so many physical space-wise taking up so much in your body.
At that point, do you need to eat any food? Are you hungry at all? Well, I think his stomach rotted out because the other thing is Vicodin. Now, for those people who enjoy the pharmaceuticals out there, Vicodin is there's a lot of acetaminophen in there. There's a lot of filler. Like if you're trying to get that high, it's like, most people, kind of go up the ladder and you start getting, Percocet, a little more stronger. You get the 10 milligram Percocet, then you get to OxyContin, then you get, you start to work up the ladder a little. I'm like, this guy was just pounding Vicodins, like like that's just a lot. That's a lot of filler. It's a lot of Tylenol.
I throw up with like Vicodin's a thing on my chart that they're like, don't give this chick Vicodin because if you give it to her, she'll just vomit it everywhere. So it's very impressive to me that you'd be like 55 of them, just stick them in there.
Down the hatch.
Ugh.
Could there be any more Vicodin? That was just a terrible Chandler joke.
I liked it. I thought it was good. And I don't think you should be down on yourself.
Thank you.
I think you should give yourself credit for that.
For whatever it's worth, I just thought of it. So it's not like I wrote that down. Thank you.
Boom.
Yeah. So basically here's my beef with this. Of course, everyone, you got to appreciate and you have, humanity and compassion for everyone, especially someone as a former current drug user, but heroin got off the heroin. That was ruining my life for a while, but still use plenty of other drugs. So sobriety, abstinence, that wasn't my path, but that works for a lot of people. That's great. The only problem is here, he keeps saying in this interview how he's using this opportunity. Why now? They're saying, why now are you coming out? Which we also knew this about him. This isn't even new. But he's like, the reason I'm doing this, aside from the book that I'm writing, is because I want to help people. I need to help people. So he keeps saying that. So I watched the Diane Sawyer bit, and it's like, there's really by the end, there's no real help other than like, I took 55 Vicodin, then I spent $9 million, and now I'm here writing a book. Is basically the long and the short of it. Because he's also a big advocate of drug courts. I don't know if you're familiar with these, with the drug court, the treatment court.
Mm-mm.
So this is like an intervention that's like supposed to be more helpful. He's all about them. But he didn't go to one. He never didn't have to go to one himself. But it's basically if someone gets arrested for just possession, that they instead of going right to jails, in some counties have like a drug court system set up, which there still is like court in the name, and it still is punitive. And the idea is basically that you get one chance to go to a treatment program. And if you check yourself, and that's like an immediate thing. So the cops will be like, you're getting diverted, going to treatment court. And the judge says, you got to go, right now you're starting with piss tests every week. And if you fail your piss test next week, you're off to, you're in jail. So it's a really, it's kind of like this idea of like, well, we're treating addiction as a health issue. But it still yet involves a judge involved in a health issue.
Yeah.
Usually doctors are involved in health issues, not judges.
It's a thing to do something, but if you haven't changed the underlying circumstances that led the person, like, okay, yeah, that doesn't seem hyper effective. I that's not a thing I know a ton about, but I do know people and systems. And normally if something has been leading a person's life to be in a particular direction and you just say, don't go in that direction, it doesn't just suddenly shift. It doesn't just suddenly
that's
change.
not how the brain works. Oh, and also, we're speaking to a psychologist here, a licensed psychologist. So tell us about, from that perspective.
Me? I'm not a licensed psychologist.
You're looking around like, is there somebody else on this? On this
no,
call?
I was like, I have a degree in psychology.
No, I know, I'm
not
kidding.
a licensed psychologist.
I went up above and beyond. No, all right, so let's clear the air.
I hope I'm never giving anyone that impression. People are going to be like, stolen valor. And I'll be like, I swear I didn't mean to do that. That's not my intent.
So this is a Vietnam veteran and licensed psychologist, Kenice Mobley, stolen valor. Yeah, that seems just even on any level, like not even addiction, but just in general, human beings really don't work that way.
That's not how behavior works. Like if all of the things are still in place that were creating that thing, then you're going to still have that thing. Yeah. You
got to change the material conditions. And I would say for someone like Matthew Perry, the other thing he says too, is he says, I want people to know, the reason I'm telling people is that so everyone is aware that this can affect anybody. If it can affect me, it can affect anybody. So I don't know. First of all, he's putting himself on this weird pedestal. Like if it can affect me.
Yeah. Oh, you mean actors? A lot of them do drugs. What are you talking about?
Yep. Sure. No, very common in this business of ours, this twisted business.
Yeah.
No, it's so that's weird. But then it's also like the idea is, there's this PSA that no one needs to know. Everyone already knows this by now. If this feels like a 30-year-old thing to be like, listen, addiction can hit anyone. And it's like, it doesn't discriminate. You're like, well, no, the drugs don't because they're chemicals, but the circumstances surrounding people when they get caught using them certainly discriminate. Yeah, a lot of ways, but they love saying that. Another thing they love saying is the disease thing.
Yes.
That's all you talk about. It's a disease, it's a disease, it's a disease. So here's how we deal with this disease. Is like we send people to court, and if they get one chance, and if they don't cure their disease, or at least like overnight, done and done. I don't give a shit about anything else. It's a pretty outrageous thing that I think hopefully next generation after that will look back at this and be like, man, that was a really fucked up thing that they called this thing a disease for a long while and just dealt with it like you would a crime. That's just you got to like break from the two. That was for a long time. It was a moral failure. It's a crime. You go to prison. Blah, blah. Once you've crossed into this idea of this is not a moral failure, and not everyone's there yet either. Some people are like, fuck it, it's a moral failure. At least they're assholes and they're upfront about it.
Yeah.
But the other side here that's being like, this is a disease that you got to like really treat by next week because like you're getting to get tested and you're
like a cancer. You give it exactly one chance to go away, and you have to decide to do that. Yep, that's how diseases work.
That's how chemotherapy works. It's one blast, and if it goes away, great. If not, you're dead.
If it's not fixed, you must have made a mistake. That's on you.
That's on you. Yeah, you didn't work the program properly. Yeah. So that's Matthew Perry.
Also, he insulted Keanu Reeves in his.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot.
And everyone was like, fuck this dude. And because Keanu Reeves, I really hope nothing bad comes out about Keanu Reeves and then we like all have to hate him because right now it's really nice liking him and everyone likes him and we just agree on that.
Nothing but love for Keanu Reeves. And I saw that. Thank you for reminding me of that. I almost moved on without saying it. He wrote, so he took a dig and it was also a brutal. As someone who's been through some shit, I'm down with dark humor. I'm down with, at my own expense generally. But like I'm down with dive in the depths of darkness for some laughs. But in this thing, he just randomly says that he's talking about River Phoenix. And he's like, River Phoenix, when he died of a drug overdose, I guess Matthew Perry did a movie with him, was like kind of knew him from that. Keanu Reeves was very tight with River Phoenix. Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix were very good friends. And I'm sure Matthew Perry must know that. If I know that. And so he mentions him and he says, Heath Ledger, River Phoenix, all the like great artists and good thinkers and, brilliant lights, like they're always the ones who die. Why is it? And why is it that Keanu Reeves is still alive? And it's just like, wow, what? Why would you pick him? Why? And I think that's kind of what Keanu Reeves' reaction was like, what is this shit?
What the? Oh, okay, what an unforced error. No one was asking you.
Dude, this was a draft of a manuscript that went through. No, this went through multiple hands before you published it. Because then he puts out an apology eventually. Because of course, he was rightfully dragged for that. Everyone's like, Keanu, what the fuck? He's like, oh, I'm sorry to Keanu Reeves. I'm a big fan. I could have just used my name, I guess, in there. Like he's trying to throw himself.
Keanu Reeves is better than you.
Much better than you.
More interesting things than you.
Much better than you. Yes. He's like, just everything about Keanu Reeves says. So I'm like, yeah, so you instead of saying, I wish you died instead of your friend because he was more talented than you. That's essentially like, I'm like, bro, that's snark at a level where, again.
How dare you, Matthew Perry? I'm sorry. Keanu Reeves, maybe he hasn't written a hit show either, but God damn it, he's been in things that I love. He's made jokes about himself. He's like half Asian, and I love that he's in half Asian stuff. Like, Keanu Reeves is cool as hell. Leave him alone.
Leave him alone. He'll John Wick. He'll come after you.
I'm going to feel so bad if in 2 years we find out that he like keeps the bones of a lady under his house or something. I'm going to feel so bad.
Something, yeah. I hope it's at least at that level.
But until we know that, he's cool. Leave him alone.
Leave him alone. If something comes up, services later, we'll come back. We'll edit this.
Yes.
We'll give Matthew Perry. We'll be like, Perry knew something we didn't, I guess. Well, Matthew Perry, take care. We're gonna slide over. You mentioned the '90s. These shows from the '90s, and I have something here. Kenice, I don't need to date you, but I was raised in the '80s, and so the '80s and early '90s, I feel like was prime time for these anti-drug PSAs. So I've pulled a bunch of them. I like to share them with my guests and get their thoughts on them. In a little something we call propaganda, stigma, and ALF.
Losers are users, so don't use drugs. Don't use drugs.
Which I come to find out, it doesn't stand for that at all. It's not propaganda, stigma, ALF. It's a public service announcement. But so that's apparently what PSA stands for. But here we are. We have one. This is one from the, I think maybe 87, 88. And this is a clinical setting here that we want to take a look at. Let me hear what you think about it.
Now, what's wrong with you? Tonsillitis?
Appendicitis.
Yeah! Nobody's died of tonsillitis around here for a while.
Appendicitis.
Nothing to worry about. Scalpel?
What if the joint were in somebody else's hand, like your surgeon, your lawyer, or your local policeman? Would you still say marijuana is harmless?
Now, let's see if I can still make a straight line.
What do they think pot is?
Right. Well, first of all, yes, that guy is like, I'm like, bro, is this your first trip around the block here? What are you doing? Like, you giggling like a goddamn, like a school kid.
If they're going to make that argument about that, then they would obviously need to make it about alcohol. And you are allowed to have alcohol. The issue is that you should know when to have it and when not to have it.
You shouldn't be doing shots of 151 in the operating room. I mean, that's sensible.
And they have rules against that.
They do. Yeah.
So
They generally do. So that's not a scenario that could ever even happen. But let's give them the like, would you? So here's then at least the question that's asked. If you're a lawyer, I think it was one, your doctor, your lawyer, your policeman. So this is like, of course, I don't know what, some weird like suburban first grade, like.
Only professions that existed also in the 50s. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to be a lawyer, a doctor, a policeman. Yeah. So those are the three professions.
Our police officers are high. What are we
very
talking
high.
about?
Yeah, they're constantly confiscating and smoking drugs. Yeah. So there's that. So yes. Then lawyers, I mean, I don't know if it helps them work, do the research, prepare their arguments. Like, again, I don't really. Good luck. Yeah. In the operating room with a lit joint does feel
you
like.
You can't smoke in a hospital, dummy.
You can't do that.
Did he take some edibles?
Edibles,
what?
even. And again, like maybe, listen, if I have a surgeon who's like laser focused, he's one of the best, and part of his process is, ingesting some THC beforehand. I don't need to know or whatever if he's gotten through and that's what makes him great. Because I know a lot of people.
And he's great while doing that. Good on him.
Great,
when
right.
I consume pot, I have to go to sleep. It would be very bad to be a surgeon or in the medical profession when you have shifts that are like 24 hours long. I would not be able to smoke pot.
Bad news. No, that'd be bad news.
To me.
No, you'd just be bumping lines of cocaine in the operating room to stay up. Yeah, I think all of that is very.
Have you watched The Nick?
No, I have not seen The Nick. Do they do?
He's like
drugs
addicted to opium, and he's like one of the first like operating theater surgeon people, and he's like addicted to opium. And so I guess some of them are doing it, and they came up with stuff. So
sure, again, probably not doing it in like moments before putting the person under anesthesia. Probably not doing it right there.
I'm thinking not, but I watched like one episode and I liked it. So
9 seasons later, they're going to be doing that shit in the operating room for sure. They better be. Yeah, I feel like this is, so that's like the silly part, even if you give them the thing of like, would you still think it was harmless or whatever? Which again, that logic, you follow that, I'd be like, would you still think I don't know, let me think of something that's harmless. A steak knife was harmless if a baby had it, or like, I'm trying to think of like the logic where like things could be harmless depending on the context versus not as harmless when you're sitting around watching, Frasier and smoking weed on the couch. Like then it's harmless. Yes. But in the operating room, you change it up there and things change. That's how circumstances work. That's how context works. But yeah, so those are some of the scare tactics. That's a fun one. I thought we'd take a look at. They had some great ones over the years, and I'll be rolling a lot of those out.
I'm a little younger than you, not by much. And the one that I remember the most is the early 2000s. I think it was Natalie Portman, or maybe not Natalie Portman. Who's the chick who was in Josie and the Pussycats? And she's all that.
She redid This Is Your Brain on Drugs. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. What is her
Natalie
name?
Portman, I think Rachel did it, but the main
Rachel Lee Cook?
Yes, Rachel Lee Cook. That's the one I remember.
Yes. Oh, I'll have to pull that one. That's right. I don't totally remember it now. I remember that it happened. But
and she's like smashing things, and that's your brain on drugs. And it's like, okay,
all right. That feels so
that's also
desperate.
Your drain with like too little sleep and like abuse from the people who love you. So like, let's calm down.
Let's please calm down. Also, that feels desperate because it feels like they're like, oh, the frying egg didn't work. Like the kids saw the frying egg. We're like, this is your brain on drugs, and they still did drugs. So I think the problem is you got to take the pan. You got to smash the pan.
Smash things with the
At some point, at some point, the pan is just going to be like thrown out a window and down a ravine, just land at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and then like a semi truck rolls over it, and then it explodes, and it's like, that's your brain.
That's your brain.
Maybe that'll work. We'll get into this next segment here really quick. And I just want to preface this by saying too, we can get as political or not as political as you want about this. This is more of the silliness of it all. I have this little number, Scranton Joe Biden from, claims Scranton as his home. That's, in northeastern Pennsylvania where I'm from. So he's a fellow coal country gentleman. His policies throughout the 80s and 90s have really hurt, and 2000s. I mean, he's been at it for before he became president for about 40 years as one of the frontline warriors of the war on drugs. A lot of great policies coming from his side, from the Democratic side of the aisle. And kind of collaborated with a lot of Republicans to really ramp up the war on drugs. Yeah, we'll be Biden time for a little bit here.
Scranton, Pennsylvania.
This is an interesting one. So this is from 80, whatever the thing is marked, but this is where he's kind of at this point just kind of theoretical, thrown out there, like something that has actually become somewhat true. They're working on it now, but let's just see where his brain goes back then.
Well, let's assume that there was a sufficient body of medical research that suggested that it was theoretically possible to develop a vaccine that would permanently vaccinate a child against the prospects of feeling the impact of or the effects of heroin or cocaine or a particular drug. That may be, it's a bizarre notion, but it would seem to me that there is going to have to be a lot more emphasis on the medical research side, at least from this center's perspective.
Okay, so that was 1989. So I suppose like now, so this is how ludicrous he gets. This is why I enjoy, because he said so many crazy things. The fun thing about that is this is so bizarre to me that it's forcing me to be anti-vax for the first time in my life. I'm now an anti-vaxxer in terms of this vaccine. Because would you agree, disagree that it seems a little disturbing for a parent to, like, as much as you want to say, you want your kids to be safe, you want everything, but to like give them a vaccine when they're a kid so that they can never feel the effects of a drug. We're starting to get into strange territory there, I feel. Yes?
I'm against it. Also,
you don't have to be. You look like you're torn.
I recognize that. It's just that, like, and there's all sorts of research going on for so many different things. And so this is kind of a simplistic argument saying like it's either or. Mm-hmm. But we have not cured a lot of diseases, nor do we have vaccines for the diseases that we are currently dealing with. Several epidemics happening.
That's right.
I mean, truly right now there's cholera in Haiti. And that we would spend time and energy focused on that versus the very serious problems that we have. I mean, drug addiction is a problem, but I do think that we should probably focus more on diseases and things like that than drugs.
Sure. Yeah. Well, because the best treatment for drugs is first to decriminalize. I would say would be before we're trying to worry about some sort of vaccine, some magic bullet thing.
You're very worried. Doing drugs is bad. Or not doing drugs is bad. I do drugs. No, but like being addicted to drugs to the point where it's interfering with your life is not the ideal state. But when you make it so that these people are pushed onto the street, pushed into dangerous situations to get drugs and all that stuff, that seems like what you would want to address
first.
Before.
Right.
You can, those things are not as complicated as figuring out body chemistry to make someone not want that. That seems not at all more complicated than like making needles safer. I don't know.
No, I know it's true. It is. It absolutely is more complicated. And you mentioned before about the material conditions, about changing people's. So that's the other thing too. Is you're just like now you're gonna fucking pump someone full of a vaccine where they can't feel the effects of a drug, but they're still haunted by the effects of their daily circumstance. I'm like, geez, now you're putting people in a. Well, they don't even have a release. I don't know where you go from there.
You're not going to have any jobs.
That's right.
And you can't feel any different. You know what that creates? Nazis. Okay.
Yes. It does. It does. It absolutely
You had a bunch of angry, dispossessed people after World War I, and they didn't know what to do, and they didn't have drugs. And what we going to do? We going to take over everything and impose a third Reich. That's
Here
how
we go.
It happens. Boom, boom, boom.
Learn your historical lessons.
Don't do it.
Learn your historical lessons. Yes, allow them to have drugs safely and legally, and stop worrying about this nonsense. Because there is a company now that is starting to work on this. Because I know. So it's also now like a real thing that might possibly happen. And again, like you just said, it's like where are the priorities? Where it's like some of that I'm sure is with public funding because Big Pharma always gets public funding. So let's use that money for the stuff that we need it for right now. Because also, go ahead.
We are making it so that people are going to become addicted to different, potentially more dangerous stuff. I'm not saying, look, not to devil's advocate and not to, because I think sometimes the thing is like, well, if we make this a thing, well, then people can marry dogs or something.
The slippery slope.
That's the thing. And I'm not saying that. But I do anticipate, like, the people who are going to rush out and give their children this, I do anticipate they would be a more conservative crowd who may have their priorities misaligned. Those people are not going to grow up and be like, well, I guess since I can't do heroin, I'll just do nothing. And so I do imagine a future where something significantly different is created to allow them to do what they want to do, and then we've got to deal with that.
You got it, buddy. You got it. Absolutely. Yep. If they're at work in the lab to do the thing where then your opioid receptors, let's just say, are totally blocked forever.
Yeah.
Then they're going to get back in the lab and be like, well, what can we now synthetically create that will give some other, do that job, but different chemical makeup.
But what are they going to do when that person has pain, though? What they going to do when that person
there's a lot, yeah, surgery? There's a lot of problems.
Good luck. Sorry, we gotta do a appendectomy, and you got to be fully awake for it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
because your parents decided that you might get addicted to heroin. So
that's right.
Therefore,
so now you're gonna have to go
painful.
through. Yeah. We're gonna open you up, and we got nothing for you.
Bite down on the stick.
Back to the stick. Yes. Back to the that'd be rough. Imagine if that was the way you found out too, that your parents did that. If you're like, wait, I'm sorry, what happened when I was a baby?
What?
Your parents are like, well, listen, we were going to tell you at some, but we just didn't tell you.
We didn't want to put it in your brain.
That's right.
So we didn't even tell you that you can't.
And they're like, oh, well, I was getting high. That's why I was fucking, doing perks with my buddy and I didn't feel anything. I thought I needed to do more. I just kept taking a ton of Percocet and nothing was working.
Isn't that going to still affect them though? Are we saying that you won't be able to overdose on a thing?
No, I guess what this is saying is that because there's the medications that exist in terms of medication assisted treatment for opioid withdrawal is like you got methadone. Buprenorphine is one of the great ones that they've finally started to make more accessible a little bit. But those are just like things. Naltrexone they use, but that's not as great. But the idea being that they block the opioid receptors, it's like a partial antagonist. So you don't feel the craving as much, and you also don't feel like you wouldn't get high really from doing like it's like a kind of just keeps you at the middle of the road. You know what I mean? So you're not desperate to get high, but you're also not like whatever. So that's kind of the idea behind at least buprenorphine as this being used. So it's like. People argue against that for saying, oh, that's just like a form of drugs. When I'm like, well, who cares? Then the people should just use those drugs, whatever drugs they want to use. But like, yeah, I think that this idea, what he's saying and what I read at least a little bit, that there's been some research done on that they might be doing this is the people who made Narcan, which is a great thing where you like save it someone from overdose. But what it does is it blocks the opioid receptors.
I have Narcan in my home because they were giving out Narcan kit, like just in case. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yes. That's a wonderful thing to save someone's life and be prepared for that. That's like the open arms in the community rather than like go die in a gutter if you're overdosing. But yeah, I think
does the junkie's life matter? That's a great question. Yeah.
Geraldo, yes, that's right. We answered it, Geraldo. It does.
It does.
Yeah. So Biden's this idea here is like, because the people who did Narcan is like, so the Narcan hits you and it does block all your opioid receptors. So the one thing about overdosing on Narcan is you also go to instant withdrawal when you wake up, though, is the other thing. So you got to like get somewhere and whatever. So it saved your life, but it's a very intense, like, so I think they're trying to develop that into it probably wouldn't be a one-time vaccine either. It'd probably have to happen over time. But the idea being that they do that, your parents do that, and then you can't go out and get high because your opioid receptors are blocked. So even if you did the drug, it wouldn't have the effects on you. So I think the idea that he's kind of thrown out here as like a theoretical that's now almost a reality is that you would do that for your kids and you just like, go ahead, go get high if you want to, but it's not going to do anything.
But only on opioids.
Right.
But like there's not, cocaine is not an opioid.
No.
Weed is not an opioid.
No. And can you imagine how much weed you're going to smoke if your parents fucking...
Alcohol isn't an opioid.
Yeah. No, I know. It's weird. It's weird. It's very weird. Another thing, if you flash forward, you want to talk about kids. That's it's a whole other thing. In terms of parents making their own decisions for their kids, that's their own business. But an adult, what's very tricky about this is you're forcing people now under the guise of treatment of a disease. You're forcing them into drug court and into jail still. So now if we start talking about like forced vaccines, we're getting into a really weird place where you're like, if there was a vaccine where you go, man, these people are sick. God bless them. I feel bad for them, but could you possibly just like, make them take this? There's this vaccine that exists, right? That they wouldn't be able to get high. So can't we just like, can't that be a part of the drug court? And it's like now judges are just sticking needles in people, and
that feels like forced sterilization to me. And I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but just the idea that like we've deemed that the best solution is to like take away choice later, and that really feels like key to me.
Yeah, it is.
Because if we're saying that, then any man who's like accused of rape should also get. And are we doing that? No.
Yeah. So, no. Well, no. We can't ever do that. Let's not get out of hand here.
We'll literally never do that. Yeah.
No. We won't. We'll barely investigate those claims.
Oh, the rape backlog is still existing, and people are just like,
Yeah. They're like, I don't know. They're like, we want to make some room in here in this closet. Should we just throw out all these old rape kits?
Should we throw them in the trash?
No, it happens.
Like the worst thing that happened to a lot of people. Should we just ignore it entirely, even though a crime was committed? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's fun. We need to make room for all these vaccines. So let's just, let's hope as we get to solutions here that they're a little bit more of the variety of like, let's if you do think this is a disease, which, we could argue about anyway, we could say how much that has actually helped the cause of people. Like I think initially people thought if we double down on this disease thing, then people will feel bad and they'll help people. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, our entire healthcare system here is not set up to help anyone who doesn't have any money. So the other thing is, it's like we got people with diabetes who have to fucking go get their insulin in Mexico, take a bus trip, to go get some insulin. So I'm like, at this point, it's like I don't know what a disease. If it's a disease, not a disease, whatever it is, stop putting people in fucking jail for it. Like we'll sort it out from there.
I had a pretty significant health thing, and I'm like, okay, how do I marry someone who lives in Europe so if anything happens again, it won't financially ruin me? Yeah.
Yep.
If you listen to this podcast and you do live in Europe, I am available for it's not a green card in Europe, whatever it's called. We can figure it out.
Kenice is here for it. Yes. Marrying into healthcare. That's what we have to do in the richest country in the world. You got to marry into it. You know what I mean? You don't get born with that. That's something you marry into. You got to marry up and out.
Ideally EU citizenship, just because it covers a bunch of countries
Sure.
and part of Ireland, but not the UK. I don't really know. It's kind of in the air right now, but I want legal status. Yes.
Yes. That's we can make that happen. We got to make that happen. Also, you mentioned really quick, you had a medical thing. Was there anything like in terms of the drugs that you were using leading up to your stroke? If you don't want to talk about it or do, it's up to
I can talk about it.
So Kenice recently had a stroke. So tell people about that.
So I had a stroke. I was in Utah, and I had earlier in the day gone horseback riding with my friends, and then I was at this ceremony where they were releasing birds, and there was a spoken word person, and the whole time my mood was not good because my neck and head were just hurting. So I took an edible because I was like, oh, I'll just relax. It's medical marijuana from New York, and it's like even if it wasn't, whatever, but it was. And so I was like, I'll just get into a warm bath and relax, and then I'll feel better tomorrow. And it's so good that I did not do that. It's so good that instead of happening truly 5 minutes later when I was in my locked hotel room by myself and they wouldn't have found me, that it was all the hotel rooms are outside. And so I was walking up a hill and I fell on the hill and I was on the phone with my mom. I'm so lucky. Some of the circumstances leading up to it were quite lucky, but yeah, I was on the phone with my mom. And so I fell. I didn't think anyone was around, but a minute later, someone walked up and was like, this lady's lying on the ground and her phone is still going. Picked up the phone, talked to my mom, asked my mom questions about my health. My mom's like, no, she doesn't have Bell's palsy, which is the thing that makes half of your face slump.
Right.
So she was like, oh, this person's having a stroke. And then she called the ambulance, but also got my mom's phone number. They were able to talk to her while I was completely out and going into surgery and stuff. And so when I woke up, my mom and my sister were already there in Utah, which was so lucky because if I had had to navigate that by myself, super bad. Also, Utah is truly the hospital is across the street from Brigham Young University, super Mormon. And a couple of nurses asked me if I was married and it was clear that they hadn't been around Black people before in a certain way. So it was so helpful that there was someone there that cares about me being alive, because I don't think I would have gotten the level of care that I received if people who were conscious weren't there to be like, wait, make sure this happens. We're watching, that kind of stuff.
Brutal. I'm so happy. Yeah. And this was right before you were going to take this edible as well. This is right before you were going to take, or right after. Was it before or after?
So I took the edible at dinner.
You did.
And so I ate my dinner, and then I watched them release these birds, and then I was walking back.
And then
you
were walking. Yeah. Oh, Jesus. That's wild, man. That's wild. Yeah.
Well, and they still don't know why. They don't know. I have to get tests done all the time because they're a person. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't I'm relatively healthy. I exercise. All my stats are good, and so they were like, we don't know.
Yeah,
So,
that's wild. No, if I had one, I could see that. You are young and healthy.
we are close in age.
Oh
You
my,
are quite
no,
young
I'm
to be
1,000
having a
years
stroke.
old. On the inside, I'm 80.
You aren't. But yeah, they were like, we have no idea because I do go to the doctor regularly. I have like charts with this health organization that I'm with. And so they're like looking back, there's nothing that would indicate that this would happen. So yeah, they don't know what's going on.
Did you have COVID recently? Or did you ever have it?
I had COVID in March. And it's so interesting. In the North, like in this, it shouldn't be this divide, but there are some people who I can tell by the way they're asking it, because some people are like, maybe it's related to COVID, as in having COVID, as in like the disease of COVID may potentially have these things. While as other people, they ask it, and you can tell by like the twang and the intonation with which they ask it if they think it is the vaccine, and they're like,
yes,
the vaccine gives people strokes, and so it's like,
I had no twang on. I had no twang.
You had no twang, and so I felt comfortable answering that. But when people ask it with the twang, I'm always like,
did you have COVID?
Did you have COVID?
Did you get the
Yeah. And you're like, don't do that. Because everyone I know had the vaccine. Stop.
Yes, this is not a
Shut your fucking mouth.
Please shush. Please shush.
Yeah.
No, I'm anti-vax, anti-heroin vax, but
yes.
Pro-vax otherwise. Yeah, that's but anti-mandate, I guess. But so I don't know. It's a complicated thing. But vaccines are, but mandates are tough. Mandates are tough. It is tough. But yeah, anyhow, I think I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that you're feeling much better. And I'm glad that I lived as well. That's where I thought I might not. And it is a weird experience to be like, oh, well, I guess I succeeded. I don't know. Well, you got your special coming out. I mean, what the hell? You're working on it. So at least, you still have stuff to give the world. It's like, I suppose it's so fucked up because it was like, I recorded that album on Friday and truly the following Wednesday I was in the hospital. So it was like, it was very rapid. Like I recorded it, and then 2 days later I flew to Utah, and then I had a stroke. And so it was like I woke up and then it was like, hey, there's stuff you have to do for the album. And I was like, I will do it when I can because. Do you ever imagine like a butterfly effect or I don't know. I was going to say like a Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge, some situation where you were, if you did die, and your special came, like would someone put like a friend of yours maybe put your special out and it would come into the world posthumously? It would, because I did it with a record company, so they would have still released it. Sure. But I hope it would make, this is fucked up. I want it to make some money, but if I died and it didn't make any money, I'd be mad as hell, dude. Oh, yeah. Like, you're like, that sounds bad, but like, okay, whatever. Okay, so I posted when I left the hospital that I had a stroke, right? And it got a certain amount of likes or whatever. But on the same day, somebody else posted like, oh, I had a seizure. And somebody else was like, oh, I feel free to speak my truth. I have cancer, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, can I have like one day? Like, I know these are the worst impulses, but I was like, you have cancer, but you didn't just get cancer, bitch. Why do you have to choose today? Today, like, yes, please. This just came out of this hit me out of nowhere. Like this was a random. Hit me out of nowhere. You could have posted this yesterday. You could post this tomorrow. It's still the same. Like, okay. No, I listen. I feel you. That's human. That's human stuff. You're like, man, this is stealing thunder of all days. I was like, you hit send on that post, and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna sit back and watch them pour in, and then let people be happy that I'm alive. Oh, yes. They care about other shit. Oh, they're getting pulled in a different. The algorithm has fucked me now because too many diseases in the algorithm today. Jesus, too many medical conditions. So, oh boy. Yeah. Well, that's I normally say when segueing into this next segment, I usually say that we want to get to know more about our guest, but we just got to know a lot about him. So also, thank you for sharing. There's a lot about me. I'm sorry. No, we want a ton about you. We want more. And thank you for sharing that your situation there. I think this one is going to be a little bit lighter and weirder. This is inside the user studio. Also, sometimes it's not light, but it's always weird. The glasses, nice touch. Thank you. We end our podcast session with a weekly dose version of the questionnaire that was used masterfully for 24 years by the great James Lipton inside the Actor Studio. And the first question is, Kenice Mobley, what is your favorite drug? My favorite drug is probably alcohol. It's booze. The thing that
I didn't start drinking until after I was 21 because I was very rule abiding. I like following rules sometimes, not anymore, whatever, it's fine. And I remember like the first time drinking, finally feeling comfortable in a way that I hadn't felt comfortable before. And it, until recently, has been nice for me, where when I drink, I feel good. And then after the stroke, based on medication, they're like, you can't drink no more. So it's a thing that was nice and had good experiences and good social stuff associated with it. And now I can't do it no more.
My goodness. Like all those poor vaccinated children who grew up and couldn't do the drugs they wanted to do. You can understand. What is your least favorite drug?
Probably Vicodin, because when I had Vicodin, I just vomited a bunch. Like I had all of my teeth removed on the same day. And so they were like, take a couple.
Every tooth.
All of my teeth.
Every single tooth was removed on the same day. My goodness. What a surgery. What a procedure.
Yeah, it's weird. These are fake. I didn't even get nice ones. I got just weird ones.
They're dynamite. What are you kidding me? That's a dynamite.
No, they got a gap. They're like funny size. They're a little chiclety for me, and I wish they were like longer. I don't know. I don't want them to be like long like a rat, but I do want them to not be like perfectly square, just a little bit longer to say these are human teeth, you know. And so they took the 4 back ones out. And then like one, they put me on laughing gas. They didn't give it. They were like, oh, we thought you were fine, so we didn't give you all of it. And I was like, you give me all of it because I can fucking feel it as you're trying to break this tooth apart in my gums and then pull out the pieces because you can't pull it out straight away.
No, up the nitrous oxide, please.
Yeah, get more. I yelled at a lady that she was a sadist bitch. Apparently, this is apparently a thing I didn't know that would happen, but if I am under some sort of influence in a medical sense and they're not doing what I think they should be doing, I will yell at them.
Sure.
Yeah, in the hospital, I was under drugs, and apparently I yelled at them, get me back to a blue state. Get me back to a blue state.
Yes. Well, you have to be your own advocate there, you know.
Yeah. But they gave me Vicodin, and I just remember like spitting up blood and taking the vitamin and then just vomiting a lot and then just being like, I'm done with Vicodin. Vicodin's done, guys. Vicodin's done.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Painful. The wisdom, I suppose, of the wisdom tooths. Yes,
they're gone. I'm dumb. I'm dumb as hell now.
Oh, my. Well, with wonderful chiclet teeth, but no wisdom in the back.
No, it's gone.
What age were you the first time you found yourself under the influence? 21?
21.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What celebrity's overdose death has had the most profound effect on you?
That is a great question. I think the one that I remember the most strongly, I don't know if that's the right word. Honestly, it was weird. Michael Jackson died when I was living in Boston. And I just remember people, and I'm not like a huge Michael Jackson fan. Don't come at me and be like, you must love child rape if you like Michael Jackson ever. And it's like, whoa. Yes. I'm sorry. I grew up in the 80s. So like, okay.
In fact, you're like, I've never heard Thriller. I, in fact, only like Michael Jackson for the child rape. So you got me there.
One of the things I just imagine someone, because I've been like people on the internet have yelled at me in the past. I do imagine them taking, if I say like jokingly, like, "Oh, I'm just here for the child rape," they'll be like, "Kenice Mobley says she."
Yes, the internet.
Yeah, but I just remember like the entire train in Boston just being like looking at their phones and be like, "Did you hear Michael Jackson?" And it was like a point of conversation. A lot of people were like talking about it and they were playing it in certain bars. And I just remember it being very present in a way that maybe some other deaths weren't as present.
Oh, for sure. And what is your favorite slang word for cannabis?
I say pot, but I'll always laugh if someone says sticky icky.
Ooh, the sticky icky, yes.
That's just very funny. That's so silly to me. That's so silly.
What drug would you like to deal for a living?
Something, prescription drugs. And that simply means that prescription drugs as an industry make billions of dollars.
Sure.
Trillions of dollars worldwide. And so being Pfizer, if I was Miss Kenice Pfizer and I could have all that money, give me that money.
Yes.
Although I would feel guilt about, like drug dependencies and manipulating people, whatever.
Sure. But
if I was going to be a drug dealer anyway,
don't hate the player, hate the game.
The way I would like to do it is the way that would get me the most money and not subject me for some reason to any criminal liability.
That's big pharma. That is big pharma for you. What drug would you absolutely not like to deal under any circumstances?
whatever drug specifically affects children. Like if there's cocaine that doesn't affect adults, but just affects children.
Cocaine for children. Well, I think that's Fruity Pebbles, I believe.
Well, I wouldn't want to deal that either. No, I wouldn't want to be a grocer.
Sugaries. The sugary cereals are pretty. Yes. And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear Michael Jackson say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, no. Do we think Michael Jackson's in heaven? Do we think any millionaires in heaven? Do we think any rich people are in heaven?
No rich people in heaven. As you breeze past him at the gates, he's not in heaven.
Oh, okay. I was like,
yes, he's on the outside waiting.
Hey, let me in. No, that's fucked up. I don't know that I would get into heaven. I think that if we're looking at strict biblical stuff, like the way they calculated, it's like 144,000 people across all of time will get into heaven as seen by someone's weird fever dream drugs about like in the book of Revelations or something. I'm not exactly sure about the numbers, but it's a very small number of people that they say will get into heaven. And I don't think I'm not like Mother Teresa. I didn't do also.
Mother Teresa ain't in heaven. I got news for you.
She did some bad stuff too.
That's right.
Christianity associated with getting food, and that's fucked up. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I would in the afterlife, which could just be the plains of Asphodel, just a big open.
Yes.
Nothing just a big open. I guess we do this for a while. I'd probably be like, hey, I hope you're getting better. Just I hope that the pain that you were having, you're not experiencing that, but also the things that you were leading to, the things that you were doing, hoping to lead to some sort of sense of well-being that actually hurt other people, that you no longer feel the need to do that. So I hope you're getting better, as I hope I'm getting better, and that us in this odd additional lifetime,
however long
use
it goes
for
on.
good. Yeah,
that's wonderful. That's a beautiful thought. In the abyss, in the great abyss of the afterlife.
Yeah, it'll just be us walking around in a murky darkness underground. I don't know where it is.
Right here. It's right here. We don't need to go up or down to find heaven or hell. It's right here on earth.
It's right here.
Well, Kenice Mobley, these are your drug users. Oh my! Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Kenice's album is going to be out. Follow-up question. It's not a posthumous album, and we're very thankful for that. So you can get that.
There's a month until it comes out for real.
So
don't jinx me, man.
No, I promise you, I will make it my full-time job if you do to make that hit the top of the charts. Because, like you said, if that thing doesn't sell, somebody tries to steal that thunder.
I'm so fucking pissed, dude. If I go through the trouble of dying and people don't buy my fucking album,
I mean, what else can you do? The ultimate hustler.
I'll be so mad.
Oh, nah. Well, we'll pick that up. KeniceMobley.com. Thank you again so much for joining us. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to your weekly dose.
Hey America, there's needle use of sleeping with your children, with your daughters, with your sons, and with your husband.
Self-Medicated Weekly Dose is hosted and produced by me, Murph Meyer, with support from Pop Culture Collaborative. Our theme song is My Congressman by 15, courtesy of Jeff Ott and Hopeless Records. Original artwork and production design by Diana Kolsky. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the program, you can listen to new episodes of Weekly Dose every Wednesday. Just look for the Murph Meyer is Self-Medicated feed wherever you get your podcasts. While you're at it, subscribe to the Self-Medicated YouTube channel to see new video clips from the show each week. Follow me on Instagram at Murph Meyer. And for some top-shelf harm reduction resources, head over to selfmedicatedpod.com. Also, don't forget, you can call the Weekly Dose podcast anytime to leave me a voicemail message with your thoughts on drugs and the people who use them. Just pick up the phone and dial 443-MK-ULTRA. All right, that's about it for me. I'll see you next week. Love and solidarity. Goodbye. Weekly Dose.
Hey America, there's needle use of sleeping with your children, with your daughters, with your sons, and with your